It's time for Windows Weekly, episode 164. This week, Paul talks about why we're still listening to crappy music and what you could do about it, the comeback of Windows Family Pack, and explains why he bought an iPhone, but not the phone you're thinking of. Windows Weekly is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott, episode 164, recorded July 8th, 2010. But I digress. Windows Weekly is brought to you by GoToMeeting. Reduce costs, improve efficiencies, and help your company's bottom line with GoToMeeting. For your free 30-day trial, visit GoToMeeting.com/Windows. And by Drobo, the original S Pro, Drobo FS, and new Drobo Elite, offering expandable storage products for individuals, small businesses, and creative teams. For more information and instant rebates, visit Drobo.com/Windows. And by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to Audible.com/Windows. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show that covers everything going on in the world of Windows, Microsoft, Redmond, Zune, Xbox. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, the star of our show, sweltering in this mid-July heat, but he's still got a cup of piping hot coffee.
No, it's iced coffee.
Is it iced?
In my 1979 era Dunkin' Donuts cup that's all faded.
I love it. Look at that.
You know?
Look at that.
They don't make those anymore, baby.
What does it say on the side of it? Giant?
Giant. They don't. That's not a kind of coffee anymore, but it used to be a size.
Yeah, you know, that's so much better than Venti and
yeah,
Grande.
Venti is kind of pukey, but you know, yeah, in Boston it's just giant. In fact, people still order a giant, even though
have a giant. Now, do you have, because I know in some regions, you know, they, I think it's in New York City, you'll say coffee light, right? Or something like that, coffee white.
You know, all right, so this is zero, and I mean zero to do with this podcast, but you have just touched on my greatest pet peeve, maybe in my entire life.
Wow, it only took me 164 episodes, but I finally found Paul's hot button.
This drives me crazy. If I walk into a coffee shop, and I don't care if it's Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, Bob's Coffee, whatever, and I order a latte and I specify the size, don't ask me any more questions.
Yeah.
Because that's a drink. Okay?
That's a drink. There's no more need to be said.
See, but here's what happened. See, now they have lattes everywhere. You can get a latte at McDonald's, you know?
I know, but
so
only
what's happening is normal people are ordering lattes. Yes. People that shouldn't be ordering.
Should never have even known the name.
Right. So here's what happened. So maybe Dunkin' Donuts or McDonald's or whoever it was in the beginning said, we're going to respect what these things are, and if someone orders a latte, we're going to give them a latte. And then they give them the latte, and the guy goes, whoa, 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 whoa. How come there's no syrup in this or flavor, or I wanted light cream or milk or something different than what it was.
The half-calf hat decaf with a twist.
I'm not even talking like the pukey Starbucks guy. I mean, literally Joe Blow off the street.
Not
just
in the Winchell's.
Says,
No.
Yeah, I want cherry syrup in there or some disgusting whatever it is. So you can't order a latte in these places. You have to literally specify every single ingredient in the drink because if you don't, you're going to get 20 questions and they're still going to screw it up. And so it bothers me that I can't just order a latte.
I just think it's funny that there is an iPhone app that tells you how to order coffee from a Starbucks. You actually build the thing, and then it says, okay, now this is what you tell the barista.
Sure. Oh, I used to go into Starbucks, and I used to order this very particular drink. I could probably pull it out right now if I had to, but I remember joking with a friend of mine, the guy I stay with in Seattle, Joe, that, you know, if the 23-year-old me could ever hear the 30-whatever-year-old me ordering this Starbucks drink, I would never stop kicking the crap out of myself.
You sold
you know
out,
what I mean?
man.
Because it's such a Nancy drink.
Nancy is the word.
You know.
Wait a minute, here comes my Nancy drink. Is this a 7-pump? What was it that Ken ordered yesterday? A 7-pump chai grande. God. 7-pump grande chai. Thank you, John.
The bowels of hell should just open up and take those people away. Second that you do something like, if your Starbucks order is more than 3 paragraphs long, you should just be sucked down to the bowels of hell right there.
Well, let me just share with you the contents of my cup today. By the way,
the offense, as we might call it.
By the way, this is a Twitter cup. There's Twitter jumping the shark. I don't know who gave me that, but thank you.
Okay.
This contains brewed coffee, but brewed in a unique way with the Aerobi AeroPress. It's plunged through a paper filter, and it's and then it is sweetened with fine agave nectar because sugar isn't good enough for me. And then
is there gold leaf involved?
There could. Oh, John, get some gold leaf. We forgot the gold. And
I want to see gold flecks in my drink.
Incidentally, the temperature of the water is precisely 175 degrees. And because you don't want to ever boil coffee. Did you know that? You don't want to boil coffee.
I do. You burn it.
You burn it. You scorch it. You scald it. It gets unhappy. And then we add half and half, exactly 3 tablespoons. And it makes Paul, the next time you're here, you're going to have this. You don't have to have the Twitter cup, but you're going to have this.
Wow.
Ugh. Is that not the finest cup? Marianne, I want you to try this coffee and tell me if this is not. I have in studio with me 3 musicians who are here to play the vuvuzela for you. Dave, Marianne, and Joshua. Joshua actually, Dave is Cello Dave on Twitter. Is that not the best? Yes, the best coffee you ever had. Marianne is Peach Violinist _Cello _ Dave. As to be distinguished from the other Cello Dave. And then Joshua is Vuvuzelist. And by the way, he's holding a Vuvuzela for the first time ever. So there. I'm sorry, Paul. Would you like to talk about Windows now? We'll edit all that out. Don't worry.
I don't think it matters.
No, we won't. No, we won't. I say that to make people feel better.
Just once, I want to walk into a coffee shop and be able to order a latte and have no one question this.
What do you mean
skim milk, whole milk, or cream?
Well,
no, I wanted a latte.
And what is the deal that what is it? Grande's small. What is venti?
You're talking about the stupid Starbucks naming convention.
The faux Italian.
Venti and whatever the other ones are.
Tall is the smallest.
Right.
Venti is bigger than grande. What does venti mean? Means nothing. Means I sold you. A cup of coffee for $5 is what it means.
Right.
Okay.
You're probably saying I am a tool in Italian.
I am a tool.
Gives them a chance.
Italians are laughing.
Make fun of you every time.
Oh, you just said I am a tool in Italian. Huh? He's a funny guy.
Smart Americans.
Wise ass. All right. You have an exclusive, and I think it's very important that we share this with the world right now.
And it's not coffee related.
It has nothing to do with caffeine in any way. It might give you a little thrill of excitement, though.
Jeez. Wow, you're really setting this one up. So Lindsay Lohan, apparently.
She's going to jail, baby. You're going to jail.
I can't believe I just pulled that name out of my butt. Anywho.
Well, no, it's in all the papers. She says she's going to 90 days in jail.
Celebrity watcher, as you know.
I know.
Phew.
He's a big fan of OMG.com.
I don't know what that means, but
dude. Oh, you're missing out on the hottest celebrity gossip.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, OMG. It's
Hey, did you hear about the sandwich that's even worse than this KFC thing that you're showing right now?
No, there's one worse than the...
Yeah, so I think it's at Friendly's, which is I think Friendly's is an East Coast chain. It's around here. It's a kind of a sandwich shop, breakfast place. I don't know. Anywho, Friendly's has a sandwich where the pieces of bread on the hamburger are grilled cheese sandwiches. Isn't that great?
It's a sandwich where the bread is a sandwich. That's so meta.
Right. So you get the full cheeseburger in the middle with all the stuff, and then the slices of bread are, in fact, 2 slices of bread grilled with cheese between them.
Wow, that does sound kind of good.
All right.
If they could just serve that with a piping hot cup of Campbell's tomato soup,
or a latte, you know.
But that is not.
No.
As exciting as it is, that is not the exclusive I was mentioning.
You know, I meant to look this up before we started, and I feel silly for not doing so.
Well, look it up now. We got all the time in the world.
Yeah, we're killing time anyway. Last year, as you may recall, Microsoft had a family pack for Windows 7. You could get
which I bought.
Right. It was a great deal. 3 licenses of Windows 7 Home Premium for $150. And the thing I wanted to look up was the availability, because I don't remember how available it was, in the sense that, I know it was in the U.S., obviously, but was it available elsewhere? I don't recall.
You know what? We've got this great chat room.
Yeah. See if anyone
and many of the people in the chat room are foreigners.
It looks like it was definitely in Canada.
Where else did they offer that?
It wasn't offered in all markets. I guess it was offered in Europe later on, apparently.
They're still talking about coffee in there.
Yeah. Anywho, they're bringing the family pack back for this holiday season, and this time it's going to be available everywhere. And so I don't have any details about the pricing or the exact timing, except that it's going to be this holiday season, but it is happening, and it will be back for the holidays. I've gotten a lot of emails from people who say, hey, I missed out on this deal. I didn't understand or had never heard that it was a temporary offer. What's going on. So I think this is an attempt to, keep the momentum going on Windows 7.
And the same price?
I don't know. That I don't know.
We don't know. Could be, but it was $50 per license.
Right? It was $150 US before. I would imagine it's going to be the same. That was
such
like a reasonable price point.
Such a great thing. I really like that. So that's an exclusive, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first.
Yeah, and you probably won't hear about this again for a few more months, but I assume they'll announce it, in the fall or whatever.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great news. And now, that was the good news.
That was the good news.
And now the bad news.
So they have not announced this yet, but, there have been a lot of things going on this week, a lot of news stories about Microsoft layoffs, and I just wanted to throw my 2 cents worth into this, because I heard they were doing this a month ago. Mm-hmm. And then I checked around with some other people just to see if, what anyone knew about it. And the way it was presented to me a month ago, and it was right around the same time that Robbie Bach and Jay Allard were leaving the company, I was told that this was an attempt by Microsoft to show shareholders that they understood how badly they were screwing up with their strategy, and that they were serious about, righting the ship. And as this is sort of unfolding, there's a lot of silly stuff going around these layoffs. I just wanted to sort of interject a few things. First of all, it's really just it's in the hundreds of people. It's not, last time they did layoffs, it was, 5,800 people.
How many employees does Microsoft have? Like 40,000?
Oh, no. It's over 90,000.
90,000.
Yeah, over almost half of which are in the, the Redmond area, right? The Redmond campus, which is
we're talking like 1/4 of 1%.
Of what?
Of the total.
Oh yeah, no, it's a tiny percentage, sure. Yeah, but there's another aspect to this, right? Microsoft, it's interesting because this happened last year when they were doing the major round of layoffs. Microsoft continues hiring, right? So, for example, in the first quarter of this year, they hired 2,000 people. They're not going to fire that many people. So the net headcount there is still going to go up.
Right.
This quarter, right? It's not all that dramatic. In fact, it's not that dramatic at all. But, I think Microsoft is a company that has too many employees. I hate, there's no other way to say it. It's too big. And it's not just too big from a sheer size perspective. It's too big from a depth of hierarchy standpoint. And I think a lot of the stuff that's been coming out this week, there's been a bunch of baloney in the press about no one cared about the kin at all to write about it when it was around.
Right.
But now that it's dead, it's like, Microsoft, suddenly everyone wants to talk, talk about the kin, like it was.
Is there, do you think, almost a Microsoft death watch in the media?
Well, if there is, it's misguided. As we've talked.
Well, it's going to be a long wait.
It's going to be, yeah. Yeah,
Ethan, how much of that is Schadenfreude? How much of it is just the shameful pleasure at another's misfortune?
I don't know if it's shameful or not. I think we all engage in this, but I've always thought of this as an American trait. But there is this. I think of it as curiously American, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is universally human. But it seems like whether you're talking about, we talk about software companies and technology companies here. But you could talk about celebrities or musical artists or whatever it is. It's almost like they get too big, and we all root for them on the way up, and then they get to the top, and we all want to trash them until they fall back down.
They should do behind the music for technology companies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Microsoft started smoking dope.
The final days of Commodore this week. You have to think it was like 3 Iranian salesmen in a room somewhere, you know.
They were on top of the world, and then it all crumbled.
Yeah, yeah. And they could bring back all the guys that ran the company, you know, who probably can't stand to be in the room together.
I remember Commodore. It was a good company. And then it started hanging around with bad guys. Yeah, no, I think that'd be good. I'd watch that.
I believe there was some.
It actually happened. It's called
shady connections.
The Tramiel family.
Yeah.
But I think this would be a good show for, maybe this is, you know, we've been looking for the mainstream breakout hit for the TWiT network.
Yes.
And maybe this is it.
Maybe you could call it Behind the Technology.
Behind the Technology.
Sure.
Everybody thought Atari would last forever. And then.
Well, you know, sadly, Atari's games have lasted forever. You can still buy, you know, Frogger on the iPod.
Is that wild? Yeah.
Yeah, it is crazy. Apparently, they haven't released a game in the last 30 years.
They don't even bother improving it. They just.
You know what I found in my cellar the other day?
What?
A Sega Dreamcast.
Would you send that to me? Because I sold Henry's Dreamcast many years ago, and he will never forgive me. He thinks he still, to this day, he says, Dad, that was the best gaming machine I ever had.
Yeah. It was
That thing was noisier than the Xbox.
I'll have to plug it in and check. I don't recall. You know, it probably came with one of those RF adapters. I'm sure it doesn't have.
Oh, no, it's not high def.
Yeah. No, I have some crazy old stuff. I had forgotten I had a Dreamcast.
Sonic the Hedgehog on Dreamcast was perhaps the finest gaming entertainment ever crafted, according to my son, Henry.
I used to play Quake 3 on the Dreamcast. And in fact, one of the things you could do with the Dreamcast was attach a keyboard and a mouse and use them to play.
Well, you know why? It was Windows CE.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure. Am I wrong? You're the Windows guru.
No, it was. Yeah. Well,
it was some
Windows
form of
CE
Windows.
Yeah, that was on there. I mean, I think there was a Windows CE boot option or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically a Windows operating system.
Yeah, it was the first Xbox, really.
Oh, that's a good point. Did Microsoft co-develop that with Sega?
Yeah, there was some blending there. Sure. Sure. I think it was the Dreamcast that convinced Microsoft just to do it themselves.
Yeah. Dreamcast was, I think, a great platform. I don't know why we're talking about this. Dreamcast was, I think, a great platform that was little, that was...
Leo, I can talk about anything.
I know, it's true. It's true. You're the Larry King of technology.
Leo, let me tell you something.
PR ya. Line 4.
Talk to me.
I'd like to know if Paul ever met Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah. Yes. And what's the Commodore connection exactly?
Okay. We're going to talk about the Xbox in just a second. Microsoft, we're done with the layoffs, right?
Sure.
It's not a big deal. You say it's just to say we are fiscally conservative.
Right. I thought that the announcement was going to come later in the month. You know, Microsoft has 2 events coming up this month that, you know, maybe would have been an appropriate time to announce such a thing. They've got a partner conference happening next week, which is an obvious time for them to talk about strategy and what they're doing in the year ahead and so forth. And then they have their annual earnings announcement the week after that.
Yeah.
So I suspect Microsoft wanted to mention this at some point, but maybe, you know, the information leaked out or whatever, and you know, so now we know. But that wasn't the intention.
Leaked out like the air from a Mylar balloon.
You can't let people go without it getting out.
Hey, you know, I think every business has to right size.
Yeah, I think they have a long ways to go, but sure.
Well, that's the point. I mean, you're talking if it's 100 people, it's 1/10 of 1%. I mean, that's the point. You got to go more. You got to cut to the bone. I'm not a shareholder, but if I were, I would say that.
Sure.
Where's the bone, Microsoft? Where's the bone?
Don't stop until we see marrow.
No, really, seriously. Is it that they have too many people, or is it that their organization chart is, you know, they need a reorg?
I think well, come on. Yeah, I think it's both those things. I would just point out that Microsoft reorgs on a regular basis, so that's not shuffling
enough.
The deck chairs around isn't going to do it. I mean, I think there are deep architectural issues, if you will, with their hierarchy. I think it's just a company that's designed to have too many committees and too many people to talk in meetings, and it just nothing ever gets done. I literally just wrote it. This won't appear until a month from now, but I just wrote an article where I sort of at the end I concluded that Microsoft's biggest problem is they can't move quickly enough, and the companies that they're competing with, especially in the consumer space, Apple, Google, etc., move very, very quickly. Yeah. And you can't be this kind of plodding dinosaur. In 18 months we're going to update this product. Hey, that's neat. Yeah. It's too long. It's too long.
Well, I'd like to delve into the semiotics of what you just said. And I think it probably went past many people, but you said reshuffling the deck chairs.
Yes.
Which is...
I was curious which part of that you were going to pull out. A reference to the Titanic.
It was a reference to the Titanic.
Yes.
Are you likening, my friend?
Wow, there it is. Okay. I believe you just implied.
I think that subconsciously,
I would like to remind you that the tape is rolling, sir. And that you are under
Speak into the machine, Mr. Thurrott, and tell us, in your opinion, sir, is Microsoft like the Titanic?
Well, I'm not a nautical expert.
All right. No. All right. Enough. There's no iceberg anywhere.
Oh, no, there are all kinds of icebergs.
Oh, there are. Okay.
Absolutely, there are.
We're going to take a little time out here. Speaking of meetings, that's another thing you said. Speaking of meetings, I want to talk about GoToMeeting, and then we will come back and we will talk about the Xbox because there is stuff there too. Surprising news, actually, about the Xbox 360 that kind of contradicts some of the conversations you and I have had earlier.
Yes.
But before we do that, how about that for a tease? See, I realize, unfortunately, if you're listening to the podcast, all I've just done is tell you, fast forward now.
I think basically what we've had here so far is coffee, Commodore, Lindsay Lohan, 2 seconds about the family pack, something about the Titanic.
What we should have said fast forward right at the start there.
Just now we're going to have an ad. This podcast is going to hell in a handbasket.
Well, here's the deal. Okay, I'd invite everybody to tweet when the show actually begins. Just say, for the benefit of your fellow listeners, you might as well skip the first, 28 minutes of this week's Windows Weekly.
As a rule. And
right,
I think we need a cup that has a picture of the podcast jumping over a shark.
I could just put the TWiT logo right where that bird is on the jump in the shark.
If we could be riding a motorcycle like the Fonz, that would be great.
Does he? Now, wait a minute. Was he riding a motorcycle, or was he was surfing? He was like water skiing, and he jumped.
Yeah, he was on ski.
Let's get that straight.
I think it's important to butcher it slightly. That way we're not treading on any.
In the great tradition of podcasting.
Yeah, just it's close enough for hand grenades.
Right. Exactly. What is a fact after all?
What is mull this one during the break?
Right. Mull that over while I mention GoToMeeting. This is the fact about GoToMeeting from the great folks at Citrix. You know the name Citrix from enterprise remote access, from their great consumer remote access products like GoToMyPC, that IT support product, GoToAssist. Citrix really knows this stuff. They've been doing it longer than anybody else. They make, simply said, they make the best software for this kind of thing. And GoToMeeting is a really good example. You've seen there are other third-party meeting programs. Microsoft has one. If you've not tried GoToMeeting, can I encourage you to do so? You can do it for 30 days, absolutely free, and just compare. We know that if you try it, you will see why this is all I use, and it's the only program, frankly, when somebody says, let's do an online meeting, I say, can we do GoToMeeting? I'll host it. I just would like to do GoToMeeting. By the way, if you have a GoToMeeting account, you can tell somebody who wants to meet with you, great, I'm going to start a GoToMeeting. I'll give you control. You show me the PowerPoint or the Keynote or the spreadsheets or whatever it is we're talking about from your computer. You can switch control. You can have up to 15 people in the meeting, and any one of them can show you what's on their desktop. It's 128-bit SSL, so feel free to use it at the free Starbucks Wi-Fi that they have now. It's okay. It's safe. It's secure. Nobody can see what you're doing. I just love GoToMeeting for product reviews, for sales presentations, for training sessions, collaboration, improving conference calls. More and more, we are now using conference calls to get business done because we're all over the place. We're looking for ways to cut costs. We're looking for ways to improve process, to work more efficiently, to eliminate unnecessary travel, and that's where using online meeting software from GoToMeeting really makes a difference. I want you to try it free. 30 days, absolutely free. Visit GoToMeeting.com/Windows Weekly. GoToMeeting.com/Windows Weekly, and you can try it free for 30 days. And after that, by the way, it's only $49 a month for as many meetings as you want, as long as you want, including free phone and voice over IP conferencing. GoToMeeting.com/Windows Weekly. We thank them so much for their support and putting up with the silliness that is Windows Weekly. So the Xbox 360, we posited some time ago that the that so much money was put into R&D on the Xbox 360, and they make so little margin on the device itself that they probably still were underwater. That may not be the case.
It may be changing, and it's. I'm going to have to go back and look this stuff up now because I'm a little bit confused how this thing turned around so quickly or so suddenly, and that's how it seems to me, right? The Xbox, the division responsible for the Xbox, has made the occasional profit, but it's been unprofitable for several years running before that. And one of the things that's always been a given, and I really sort of enjoy when the conventional wisdom is incorrect, and in this case it was something that I assumed to be correct simply because Microsoft had said it was correct in the past and never corrected itself over time, was that if you look at the number of Xbox Live subscribers, historically, the majority of them, vast majority of them, were not paying customers, right? Because they have an Xbox Live Gold and an Xbox Live Silver type of subscription. The Silver version's free. The Gold version costs about $50 a year. Now, I've always paid for the Gold version myself.
Yeah, I don't even know. What do you do with the Silver version?
Yeah, you play with an avatar pretty much and give it little, outfits and stuff. I don't know. There's not much you can do.
You can't game. Can you game with it? I mean, play against it?
Well, yeah. I mean, there are additional capabilities along with the Gold thing, and I think one of those is multiplayer game matching with your friends.
So that's the whole point.
Yeah, it is for me. So, but something wonderful has apparently happened, and it's interesting how they figured this out because this comes ahead of Microsoft's earning announcement for the year. But this is basically a calculation, and it's a pretty smart calculation. Apparently, somebody from Bloomberg discovered that, first of all, there are 25 million. I'm sorry. Let me see if I get this right. Yeah. So, yeah, there are 25 million Xbox Live subscribers. Okay.
Okay.
But now, for the first time, half of them are paying for the Gold subscription, right? That's about $600 million a year.
A year. And that's for nothing.
It's for nothing. But what's interesting
not for nothing, but I mean, it doesn't cost, it's incremental income.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, in any time you talk about technology, whether we talk about music services like on iTunes or Rhapsody or Zune or whatever, the subscription servicing has always been the gold ring that everyone's looking for. People in the business want customers to pay them regularly. Microsoft has always looked for subscription services, whether it's for Windows or Office or whatever. You don't want someone to buy something and then actually use it. You want people to pay you every single month. So that's a lot of money. But the other thing that's really interesting is that $600 million represents about 50% of what that business generated in sales in the past year, meaning that customers also spent about $600 million on other things, right? So what else does Xbox Live sell? They sell, game content, right? Like map packs and so forth. We know those are huge.
And media,
they rent movies,
TV, and
TV shows, things like that. I mean, there are silly things you can.
But that's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's not bad. So
that's 1.2 billion total, right?
It's a big, that's a big business.
Again, incremental income, because I don't imagine it costs them a whole lot to service that.
Right. Now, it wouldn't take too many years at that level, and you have to sort of think it's going to go up, and it definitely has gone up. This could become successible over time.
And I have to say, this was the strategy. This was the whole point. Microsoft said, I think, my imagining, you correct me if I'm wrong, I can imagine this meeting, and it might have been 10 years ago. We want a set-top box. We got to get in the living room, and it's not going to be through a PC. It's going to be through some sort of consumer device that people put next to their TV. What is that? Oh, we got this gaming thing.
Oh, and by the way, now it's actually quiet.
Yeah, right. Well, minor detail, but we could get it in. It was a stalking horse. We get it in through gaming, but we had TV. Now we had the Zune market. We had all of these blades that are really more about media than anything else. And then we get all this incremental income, and it's for life, right? Because now we own them.
Yes, and Xbox Xbox 360 customers are, I think, the one thing that Microsoft has that's anything like what Apple has for virtually all their products, which is very dedicated user base. But
own the chain, but you got to own the chain.
You know, in a sort of Monday morning quarterback type of scenario, what you just said makes all kinds of sense, because we can point to this now and say, look, it worked.
Right.
But I just want to remind everybody,
in hindsight,
like, how could we have been so wrong about this? Well, I'll tell you, because Microsoft's fiscal year ends in June, right? So the earnings they're about to announce will occur later this month. They refer to the 12 months from June back, right? The previous period of time before that, the previous fiscal year before that, the one that ended in June of 2009, they made 1/6 that amount.
200,000? They went from 200,000?
Well, 200 million, right?
200 million, I mean.
Now, so understand that it's not like they were on this gradual upswing and we missed it.
Right.
This was a business that never made any appreciable amount of money.
Right.
So I just want to make sure everyone's very clear on this. It's not like we just weren't paying attention. I mean, this is surprising. You know, this is news. You know, this is actually a huge jump.
Now you got to estimate that Microsoft spent, what did we say, $50 billion on R&D on the Xbox 360, something like that.
I don't think we'll ever know, but I've heard figures in the billions and up to including $5 billion.
$5 billion. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it won't take long, a few years before just that income alone. You have
years like this. Now, but what's interesting about this is, and again, this is important to remember too. The original Xbox appeared in 2001. Its successor, the Xbox 360, appeared in 2005. It effectively was obsolete the moment the Xbox 360 came out. It had maybe another year on the market where it probably sold over the holiday seasons and so forth. 5 years. Now, as of today, as of this year, the Xbox 360 has been on the market for 5 years. Longer, really, than the previous console. And Microsoft's now saying they expect it to last for another 5 years. I think this, too, is key to making this a viable business, that the rapid succession of console introductions in the past meant Microsoft could never have made money in this market, right? And this is a problem Sony's seeing with the PS3 as well. And what they want to do is stretch it out so they can recoup their investment and actually make money in the latter years when the price of components comes down. You know, all the R&D has been, paid off effectively, and they can actually generate, real income off of something that's paid for, So obviously from Microsoft's standpoint, it makes sense for the 360 to last as long as is possible. Whether it goes 10 years, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But, this is the time for them to make money, and it's really interesting. And we'll see, because they're going to announce their actual earnings, and we'll see if it is exactly what they said it was. But
so this is speculation, this number. Oh, yeah, you said it was Bloomberg.
Yeah.
No,
it's based on a conversation with Microsoft, and noting that because of what they call DLC content, this, the other purchases that people can make on Xbox Live were about $600 million. And represented half, and you can kind of do the math and figure it out.
It does validate, though, this strategy.
It does, but we'll see. I mean, how much better would it have been for the company if the original Xbox 360 wasn't so unreliable, if they didn't have to pay the billions of dollars later in its life to do the warranty recall program, which you have to think was like a stake through the heart of the whole thing.
Oh, God. I mean, imagine how many hundreds of millions did they put aside for that? I mean, it was a big deal.
Billions. I think it was over $1 billion.
It was over $1 billion. Wow.
It was a record consumer electronics recall. And, it's too bad. But listen, I've had so many of these damn things through my house. I mean, I love the Xbox 360, and I get it. It really is this kind of Stockholm syndrome thing. I mean, it's
no, but it wouldn't. It in a way, it's look. I've had 3-4 red rings. I'm sure you've had more than that.
I've got one in
right now,
Texas. I should know the name of the town, Mesquite, Texas, right now.
It's got to put Mesquite right on the map there. It's got to be the number one industry in Mesquite.
This is how bad it is, Leo. They used to give you boxes that you could send the Xboxes back.
They don't do that anymore?
No. You have to send them back yourself. I've kept boxes, so I'll always have boxes to send these things back in. Because the boxes they used to send you were actually really nice. I still have 2 of them left in my cellar.
That's pretty funny.
I'm gonna need them.
Well, what do you think the new one, the Slim, is going to have?
It's too early to say. So far, so good. I think we've talked about this a little bit. I have it out in the living room. I have it in a a pretty tight cabinet. I mean, there is some airflow, but it's, and there's no glass over the front or anything like that.
No problems yet.
It's not something I would have put the original Xbox in, the original 360. It's quiet, much quieter. I don't hear the thing at all.
I got to get one.
And we've been using it a lot. I've used it to replace 3 components that were in there. I had a dedicated, Roku box for Netflix, essentially.
You don't need that anymore, do you? Yeah. Although Roku has added, I don't know. You should look at Roku because they've added all these nice. Yeah. You can get CNN now on it, not live, but they've got.
I think you can get Pandora on there as well.
You can,
and that's one thing I'd like to have on the Xbox 360.
You can get a ton of stuff. You can get us for one thing.
Yeah.
And soon you'll be able to watch us live.
That was easy to say no to. So, yeah. But there's
not a selling point, huh? Not a feature.
It's weird. My kids don't like to watch that show.
I don't know why. Yeah. God, my kids, you'd think they'd love Windows Weekly.
Sure.
It just seems like it would be in their DNA.
You do, yeah.
No.
Don't care.
No, nothing that Dad does. Hell, I was a cartoon character and they didn't want to watch me. And they were 4 years old and they didn't want to watch. So forget it.
I enjoyed you very much back then.
Now,
we're talking the same.
Dev Null.
Yes.
Now, what do you think?
So,
you think
mostly because you were with,
that beautiful Soledad O'Brien.
Soledad O'Brien.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Although she's had like 15 children since then, so I don't know.
I don't care, Leo.
Yeah.
I don't care.
She's still lovely. I don't know how she does it.
Yeah.
I think there must be a test tube involved.
Wow.
Well, seriously, she's had, how many kids has she had? No, I love you, Soledad, but really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's at the point now where she goes under the porch and she comes out with a kid. There's too many to count. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Changing the subject. PlayStation Live. Do you think it's as successful as Xbox?
Oh, no, it's not even close.
Not even close.
No, in fact, they're very clearly trying to emulate the success of Xbox Live because now they're going to have I don't know what they're calling it, a plus subscription or whatever. That's going to be $50 a year, But, Sony made the right decision for gamers early on, which was recognizing that they needed to have an online service. They have a little marketplace on there. You can buy games and stuff. Okay, fine. But, the big deal is you can get on there and play games, and it doesn't cost anything extra. And, from the perspective of a gamer, I think that's the right standpoint. And when you're entering the market a little bit later with the console, as they did, and in this case, it was kind of hard to foresee, but their console hasn't really caught up yet. You kind of need to have that extra perk. I mean, I think it's a sign of strength from Microsoft that they've been able to maintain a paying subscription on this thing, and people just keep paying it. It tells you how important it is to these people that they have access to Halo and the Call of Duty games and all that, be able to play them online. They're willing to pay another $50 a year. That's another game, the cost of another game every year.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah. It's not an insignificant amount of money. I mean, it's interesting.
Microsoft makes how much on the games? What is their slice of the games?
We know that. I mean, I think that they make a...
10, 15, 20? It's probably significant, right? Nintendo made a ton of money on the license.
Yeah. I don't think it's... I would look at Nintendo and I would look at Apple as the companies that probably have established a fairly high margin business around that kind of thing. I don't think Microsoft has quite that. I think there's a little bit of I'm sure there's a little bit of money per title, but I think it's probably a lot closer to single digits.
Okay.
But that's a speculation.
Okay. Windows Intune. Now, Google and Apple have both said... Oh, this is different. This is not music.
Yeah,
I was fooled by the Intune thing.
Oh, I see.
I was thinking a streaming music service, but wait. Oh, no. They already do that.
They do.
It's called Zune.
It is.
Windows in Zune.
Zune, yeah.
And Google and Apple both apparently are about to launch, Wi-Fi syncing, streaming music, something Microsoft has been in for a long time.
Microsoft has had Wi-Fi sync since 2007.
It gets no credit for it.
It's a really basic feature. I mean, and actually, not to get off on a tangent, I just say very, very briefly, I think one of the big limitations of the Apple stuff, and it only doesn't matter in some ways because they just dominate the market, so who cares? But, from a user's perspective, is that you still have to plug this thing into something to get it going.
Right.
To activate it, to do whatever it is.
Even
and
the
then
iPad.
If you want to, yeah, I mean, and if you want to sync content, you have to, and by content, I mean, TV shows, movies, music, whatever. You have to be plugged in. That is so old-fashioned.
Yeah.
It's really kind of bizarre.
This is actually something that's puzzled me in the tech industry as a whole. we used to say, oh, no, the best product always wins, or then the first to market always wins, this kind of thing. And that's not true at all.
Actually, those two things never happen.
Never happen. It's the other way around.
I think universally we can almost debunk both of those.
Yeah, it's all about perception and marketing. And
and by the way, you know enough about Apple. I don't want to. People get crazy when I talk about Apple too much, but you know the way they'll present it whenever it happens. If it's this September, which seems to make a lot of sense, for iTunes 10 or whatever, they will say something along the lines of,
"We were the first. We invented it."
No. In this case, they can't say that. But what they will say is, other people have tried this, but we got it right.
Right. We got it right. That's the line.
The reason they waited because they weren't going to put out a half-assed,
Exactly. Other phones have cut and paste, but we were waiting till we could do it better.
I'd love them, but I hope it happens. I mean, and the reason I'm concerned about this at all is because, like them or not, the Apple ecosystem stuff when it comes to digital media is it.
Right.
And it's Zune has less than 5% of the market, so it's cute that they have something better, and I love it. But I'm talking to a room of one here if I want to discuss, the advantages of Zune, whatever. It really almost doesn't matter.
Well, you could get a small holiday in and have a meeting.
Nice. It would be like one of those Bigfoot club things or whatever.
Exactly. Sasquatch Followers United, SFU. Sure. Actually, Sasquatch the Followers United, SFTU. STFU. Sure. And you guys, you meet, it'll be great. It'll be great. You could have a beer. You could buy a round for the group, and it would, it'd be pocket change. Well, you know what? Zune's going to live on because it's in the kin. So, it's all it lives. Zune lives. So I'm sorry, I got distracted because I saw Tune.
Yes.
Intune has nothing to do with that kind of tune.
It has nothing to do with music, sadly.
It's Tune Up.
Actually, what this is a PC management service. And next week at the Windows, the Worldwide Partner Conference that Microsoft's going to have in Washington, D.C., I think that we're going to see some more information about this service. I've been using the beta version on my own home PCs, But the thing that freaks me out about it, what it does is it's basically it's really a hosted cloud version of a PC management service. It's something that Microsoft currently sells as System Center for businesses, and it's a very expensive on-premises server. It's very complicated. And this thing is like super simple, like I said, cloud-based, simple client install, and it works like Microsoft Security Essentials. So if you're familiar with that anti-malware product, which I strongly recommend, it's free and very easy. It looks and works just like that from the client perspective. But what's neat about it is from the web interface, you can go up and configure which updates everyone's going to get. You can put computers in groups and say, if it's in this group, automatically install all the security updates, don't even ask, or whatever. You can set little policies and so forth. It's a neat product. And it's sort of an extension of what Microsoft's doing with cloud computing. Again, one of those unheralded parts of the company where, oh my God, they're falling so far behind. But here they are, once again with this thing that nobody else has. And it's actually really powerful. What's bizarre about it to me, again, first of all, it's going to take forever to come out. It won't be out in final form until next April at the, probably sometime around April. They're aiming it at the medium-sized business market,
Not end users, not small business.
Exactly, which is the two markets I think it should be marketed to first.
That's who needs help.
Right. And I think there is a crowd of people who would pay for something that actually worked where Microsoft was managing your computer, right? I think to a certain crowd that would actually be attractive, because maybe they look at the PC like the security stuff and is a little complicated and it's something they don't quite understand. Let Microsoft take care of it. Now, to a certain segment of the population, what I just said is absolutely ludicrous. So if you've been laughing ever since I started that sentence, I just hold on and relax because, I think there are normal people out there, not power users, again, where this would actually be attractive. I think it would be hugely attractive to small business customers because they don't want to buy servers and manage them or pay some company to manage them. They just want this stuff to work. And the coolest thing about this service is it works from anywhere. When your computer connects to the internet, it makes sure that you're in policy, right? It makes sure that your computer is adequately protected no matter where you are. You don't have to be in the corporate network. It's kind of genius. So it's just a cool thing. I want to mention it because Microsoft briefly opened this up to a public beta, and they got swamped with requests, and they had to shut it down very quickly. This happened back in April, I think.
Oh, really? That's interesting. That just shows you the demand.
Yeah, and I think I would just tell people, because I get email about this, I've been using it. I think it's fantastic. pay attention next week. I think there's going to be some interesting news around Intune and other stuff, at the partner conference. So stay tuned. If you've been waiting for this, I think you should have some good news coming.
Would Microsoft ever make an end user thing of this kind?
Yeah, I mean,
I guess again,
they move so slowly.
The old OneCare kind of did this, right?
Well, that's the thing. So years and years and years ago, and I have such a hard time even remembering when this was, but I want to say it was right after Longhorn was announced. One of the deals at the time was Longhorn was going to have this, Longhorn, which became Windows Vista, was going to have this really deep-seated AV plug-in architecture, and then third parties were going to be able to plug in and yada, yada, yada. And I remember saying to the guys, you need to just make this part of Windows. If Windows is insecure, or if Windows has flaws that hackers can exploit, that's a problem in your product. You need to be the one that fixes it.
Right.
And it needs to be a feature of the OS. You shouldn't even be charging for this. And there are arguments to be made about the third-party ecosystem and how there are all these companies like McAfee and Symantec and so forth that make all this money every year. And to me, that's a market that needs to go away. It's a fake market. They've really gotten enough money out of that. They're just exploiting people. That stuff should not be a problem in Windows. You should just fix it. That's always been my attitude. So over the years, they've kind of slowly moved toward what I've been talking about. So they released OneCare at first. OneCare was neat for what it was, but remember, you had to pay for it. And I always thought, okay, it's cute, but you shouldn't be charging people for that.
Right.
And now they have Microsoft Security Essentials, which is great because it's free, but it's not included in Windows, and I don't understand that. I think that Security Essentials should be included in Windows.
Is it because it would conflict with maybe some other third-party solution that OEMs put on there? Like
no,
McAfee
I think it's because McAfee and Symantec, who, by the way, do pay PC makers to get those products in there. So with the margins so thin on PCs, that income is a significant portion of what these guys actually make per PC. That's part of it, like an economic type of thing. But my perspective is always from that of the user. I don't care if PC makers make less money. I don't care if McAfee or Symantec go out of business or have to move into other businesses. I'm more concerned with the people who actually, use the computers. And it seems to me like if you're causing the problem, in effect, you need to fix it. It needs to be free. It should be part of the OS. I'd love to see that happen. This service, Intune, is interesting because it builds on top of that. And I think this is the opportunity here for them to just put Security Essentials in Windows, just protect Windows. I mean, like, how could you sell something that's not secure and then let people download something to fix it? It's so ludicrous when you think about the situation. But this service is interesting because it sort of takes the onus of PC management, the things that keep your PC secure over time, off of you and onto Microsoft. And I think people would pay for that. And I think that's something where it would be okay.
Really?
Yeah, for a small amount of money. Yeah.
So, I see. You okay with users? You mean?
Yeah,
not okay with McAfee or Symantec.
I don't care about.
But we don't care about that. We've established that.
I think people would have argued it's an antitrust thing.
Yes, right.
And okay, and maybe today it still is.
Think it is.
I think we've kind of passed.
You can make a strong. Wouldn't you be able to make a strong case to the court? No. This is. Well, of course they tried that with the browser, but this is a fundamental feature of an operating system. That's
exactly my point.
It
is not an end user feature.
Right.
They tried to make an argument that Internet Explorer was a part of the OS. Okay, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Windows Media Player, we're getting out there a little bit. Messenger, security, underlying, fundamental, protecting users from online security threats. Really? Right. You're going to try to argue that has to be outside of the OS?
In fact, you could really easily position it as this is the OS.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is not the feature of the OS. This is the OS. It's got to protect itself. Right. I think it's clear then that all they're doing is protecting third parties.
Right, to the detriment of users.
To the detriment of users.
It's the wrong way to do things.
The ISVs win. But Microsoft's always been hypersensitive to their...
Okay, so interestingly, ISVs have not always been hypersensitive to Microsoft, right?
No.
I would point out that and I have pointed out previously that over the past several years, all of these platforms that Microsoft has released, no one is adopting them. Right? People are writing applications for the web and for mobile devices, not for Windows. So why is Microsoft protecting these people, right? It has not been a two-way street. So I just think things have matured to the point where we need to stop worrying about the things we used to worry about and move on.
Yep.
And I think that security needs to be part of Windows. But I like the service because I like the notion of, in my case, I'm using it like a small business would. So I'm managing the computers in my home using a web interface. And it's neat because I could be in Durango like I was last week, but I still have the management capabilities. I can, because those computers are connected online, I can make sure that they're getting the security updates they need and all that. And if there's an alert, I actually get it. I don't have to be in the office. It's a great idea, and it's a very logical way to use the cloud. And it's the type of thing when you see it, you realize these on-premises management servers they're just doomed. I mean, this is such an obvious thing.
Yeah. Interesting. Intune could be the first step there.
I think so.
How's the book going?
Good. I think I shocked my publisher this week. I got one of those emails, like the knowing emails, like, look, we know you haven't even started working on this yet. But according to the schedule.
That's like preparing for failure. Okay.
Well,
we know.
Listen, I've written a lot of books. I know how this works. And I've not dealt with other writers like they do, but I mean, I have to, based on the conversations I've had.
We all suck.
Yeah, we're not an energetic go-get-em crowd.
No. Has there ever been an author
email and they were like, well, technically you're supposed to have some chapters in on Friday, and I said, yeah, well, actually I finished some chapters. You want them now? Surprise! Yeah, so awesome. I've actually
that must have felt great.
It was the first time in my life I've ever been able to do that. Actually,
that's awesome.
But it's going to slow down. I mean, I have to finish it this month. I got a lot to do, but. I've been writing bits and pieces here and there before I got the device, and some of the book I don't need a device, as it turns out, for some stuff. I mean, obviously, most of it I do need the device, and I am getting a device any day now. So, it's going to kick in. So what I've asked, I've sent in some stuff. I've got a couple of other chapters that I asked him. I said, I want to be able to take shots on the device. Let me wait till I get it. I'll get the shots in. I said, if you want the chapters, you can have them. I mean. The publishing company and I have different standards for what complete means. In their mind, complete means every single shot is complete and the chapter is completely written. From my standpoint, I finished the writing and then the rest of it is just icing as far as I'm concerned. But they want everything. So I've actually been able to send some stuff in already, regardless, which is really kind of neat.
That's the one thing, good. And you're going to get. Do you have a phone yet?
No, I'm going to get it Monday.
Ooh. You probably can't tell us anything about it.
I'm going to find out what I can say. I don't know. Right now, I don't want to say anything because I don't know what I can say. But, these guys, it's funny. When I talk to them in person, and by these guys, I mean, Microsoft, the Windows Phone, or whatever, they're very, they seem like they want to help, But, man, they've been pushing this thing back again and again and again. And this is crunch time. I have to.
Yeah, you need a phone.
Actually, I really do need to get this done. Mm-hmm. And it's like they've delayed the phone delivery is so far beyond what I would consider appropriate at this point. I can't even.
But they're not holding on to it and saying, "Oh, let's set it to Paul." They probably wasn't done.
You know what? I would put it this way: if you can give it to me on Monday, how come I can't have it right now? Why do I have to wait to have it delivered to me?
They're still inserting the keys in the keyboard, or they're buffing the screen or something.
Oh, I could, it'd be killer to have this whole weekend to be able to get a bunch of stuff done. That'd be great. True. I can't do it because, I'm going to work all weekend regardless. But it's hard, from a work perspective. Think about this. I mean, you have X number of chapters to write. You have X amount of time. Yeah. You could write 75% of this, 75% of this, 75% of this, and at the end of the weekend, still have done the same amount of work. But how much better would it have been to have finished 2 chapters and have them just behind you, right? It's a different mental thing, isn't it?
Paul,
a sense of accomplishment.
You think they care about you? I could see that in your eyes.
I'm becoming increasingly aware that nobody cares.
They don't care. Yeah. Your weekend means nothing to them.
I just want to finish this.
I'm sorry, but I want to. It's tough love, Paul. I'm just telling you what's so.
You know what I did do that is kind of cool, and I would recommend this to anyone interested in Windows Phone development.
Yes.
This is pretty neat.
Yeah.
If you have a touch-compatible computer, like a tablet PC or one of those HP Touch Smarts or whatever it is, you can load the Windows 7 developer tools on it. They're all free, right? The Visual Studio Express for Windows Phone and so forth. There's an emulator, like you get on the iPhone if you do iPhone development. But because these things have touch screens, you can actually interact with the emulator phone as you would with the phone, with your finger. You can touch it and you can flick it to scroll around. You can do gestures. It all works on the screen, you know? So it's not the same, obviously, but it's a million times better than interacting it with a mouse, you know? It's pretty cool. It's another little innovation that you'll never hear.
I'm sorry, did Apple invent that?
They will.
I don't care.
Maybe later this year or next year. And when they do, I can assure you, they will trumpet it to the sky. But
we didn't invent it, but we did it better.
You know, they'll just have invented it because nobody else
just like they invented video calling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they did invent video calling that requires Wi-Fi.
They did invent that.
I will give them credit for that.
Credit where credit is due. Let's see. Digital Media Core is the next item on your agenda.
Yeah. So I've been meaning to do this forever, and obviously.
Oh, this is that series that you started. Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna redo this again. So what I want to do, and I've been meaning to do this again for months. I've looked at it. I've actually gone in and edited a few of the documents, and I want to just kind of get it done. And I'm thinking, you know, we're going to be, after I finish the book, we're going to Germany. I'm thinking that might be a good time to kind of pad it out a little bit. You know, if hopefully August will be a down month and there won't be a lot of news or whatever, and I'll be able to get some of this done every week. But I'm going to start it before I go. I want to re-examine the issues that I consider core to, you know, the digital media experience, things like digital music, digital videos, photos, etc. You know, what's the best advice, the best tools, you know, the best way to get things done, kind of how-to type stuff. You know, how do you rip a DVD, and what's the best format to use, and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of subjects, you know. But I got an email from somebody this week who was talking about lossless music and asking me how did I handle music, because, you know, he had listened to some technical podcast. It might have even been one of ours. I don't remember, where they were talking about how, you know, you get this CD and then you lose, you know, quality when you rip it to MP3 and it sounds lousy and you're doing a disservice to your ears and all this stuff. And you know, this is another classic example, I think, of people really kind of overthinking things, you know. You could, and I know people who do this, I mean, you could rip music in a lossless format. You instantly incur tremendous compatibility issues, not to mention, you know, compatibility, I'm sorry, I said compatibility, instant sort of like storage space issues, and then also convenience issues, because anytime you want to move that stuff onto a portable device, I mean, you have to make sure it works with that device. You have to use formats that work with the devices you use and presumably will use, right, in the future. Some devices support some lossless formats, but when you copy a lossless file onto a device, you're going to kill the battery. Literally, the higher the quality, the more it impacts the battery life of the device. And of course, you can't take advantage of the storage space, right? You know, I can fit all of my compressed MP3 and AAC music library into 20 gigabytes, let's say. But if it was lossless, I mean, how much more space would it take up? You know, it's hard. I haven't calculated, but a lot more. So last year, when I started the Digital Media Core series, I evaluated the situation at the time. And when I wrote about ripping music from CDs at the time, I determined that MP3 was the better choice because it was the most compatible, right? You want it to work with everything, you know, now and in the future. And I had some advice around, you know, what tools to use and what bit rate to encode at, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Looking at it from the standpoint of today, and I'm going to rewrite the article for, you know, 2010, I'd actually have to say, and I've done this myself, I would go with AAC at this standpoint. And that assumes a couple of things. It assumes that you've moved on to Windows 7 if you're in the Windows world. Because once you do so, you get automatic compatibility with AAC, right? Both in Windows Media Player and in Windows Media Center. But also, even if you're on the Zune platform, you know, the Zune works fine with AAC. If you buy music from an online store like iTunes now uses 256K AAC. I think they call it, what do they call it? AAC Plus or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
But
it's really AAC. It's just 256-bit.
256K, yeah, in stereo.
Right.
So for my own CD ripping, and by the way, the further we go along, a lot less of that occurs. I mean, I can count the number of physical CDs that I purchased in the past year on one hand easily. Actually, that's not true because of the Beatles. But aside from the Beatles, actually, if it weren't for the Beatles, that would be true. But I did buy a ton of Beatles CDs. That's a one-time deal, though. But when I rip those things, I rip them in 256K AAC. That's actually what I do. And as to the quality issue, I wrote this guy and I said, Consumer Reports tested this, but there have been a number of tests online, same thing. I mean, actual consumers using just mid-grade audio equipment can almost never tell the difference between different audio formats, whether you're talking 128K, MP3, whatever it is. We all listen to music in different ways. Very few of us are listening in a pristine environment with perfect acoustics on the high-end stereo with gold connector tips and so forth. Right. I mean, I listen to music on my, my headphones, on a plane, which has a lot of background noise. I listen at the gym when I'm running on a machine where you get the loudness of the machine. I listen in the car, which it's not very quiet. I mean, that's just the way it is.
I think people miss out a little bit because there are times when you could sit and listen on a nice system in a living room and really listen and enjoy the music. And that seems to have disappeared. Ironically, I think a lot of people have that system because they've built home theater systems with great surround sound speakers, and they could be listening to high quality music in a high quality setting, but they just don't.
When I was a teenager, I used to listen. I had a single CD player. These things were new,
and you'd put on the headphones.
I would put on those big
good headphones. Yep.
And I would listen to music, and I would listen to music and hear things I had never heard before in the same music that I listened to previous. And that was very interesting to me at the time. I think if you're that much of an audiophile at this point in time, then my advice doesn't mean anything to you. Then you can just discard it. But I think for most people, I think you just need to be realistic about when and how you are going to listen to music and think about the convenient stuff. And if you really feel very strongly about it, then you're not listening anyway, and you can do your lossless thing or whatever it is. But I really... For the times when I have music playing in a kind of a public way, if we have people over as like a party maybe, and we have music going through, whatever it is.
AAC.
This stuff, this stuff sounds great.
Yeah. No,
by the way, if you are a Zune guy,
does it do AAC now?
Absolutely, it always has. I mean, well, it has for a long time. I would still recommend going to the Zune store. I mean, I'm sorry, to the iTunes store, and if you're going to buy music, buy it there.
Really?
Yes, because it's unprotected and it works great.
They're still selling it as protected WMA files?
No. Actually, Microsoft
it's MP3 now, isn't it?
Sells MP3 almost completely now.
But not AAC. Hey, something people should point, and I think you kind of allude, but the AAC is not an Apple format. I think people, because of iTunes, think it's an Apple format. It was created by the same people who created MP3, the Fraunhofer folks, as a sequel, as a successor, as a better MP3.
Yeah, now the deal, a year ago when I looked at this, it was more than a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, when I first looked at this issue for this digital media chorus series, Windows Vista was the current version of Windows. There was no AAC compatibility in Windows itself.
Right.
There were really dodgy, and probably still are dodgy, ways to get AAC files to play in Windows Media Player or whatever. To me, that kind of stuff is just complex, and it's not the type of thing normal people are going to do. And it seemed like the safe bet was a high bitrate MP3 type of file.
Yeah, I still kind of recommend that because it'll play on anything.
Yeah, this recommendation is literally for, this assumes you've moved to Windows 7 in the Windows space. I think once you get into Windows 7, you're there. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you had I don't know what year it came out, a 2002 Rio Carbon or something, yeah, it's probably not going to play AAC. I don't remember off the top of my head. I doubt it. But this is more forwardly.
A Rio Carbon?
Yeah. That was a cute little device. It was nice.
Somewhere here I have a Diamond Rio, the original.
The original
the
one,
500. Yeah. Actually, it wasn't the original, it was the second one.
Yeah, like kind of a bricky looking thing. No, this thing was really small.
The Carbon.
It was very nice. It was kind of an iPod Nano competitor of sorts. I don't know. Black and white screen, small. It's cute.
Yeah, I am actually looking at, I haven't done it yet, but I really want to make a nice stereo with really good speakers. And instead of buying, CD quality music, which is, 44.1 kilohertz 16-bit, all of that.
Sure.
I want to get there are now companies that sell these like 96 kilobit recordings, or higher quality recordings. And I think it's still digital downloads, by the way. It's still not, we're not talking analog vinyl, which some people think is the greatest, but I think you can get digital, high quality digital that's going to sound really great. It's not compressed either, by the way.
Right. I remember there was a service called Music Giants.
I think they're still around.
Are they? Yeah, I don't know.
There are a number of these. We talked about this with Scott Wilkinson. He's done a lot of talking on this subject. But it just, I have and you know what? I'm probably so old that it's not going to make any difference. I'll say, but I miss really great sounding music in the house. I don't know why. Because there was a feeling. It was emotional.
I know what you're saying. I cannot think of an instance where this would be important simply because of the lifestyle.
When are you going to listen? And of course, the vuvuzelas now have ruined my hearing completely. So
you have 60 minutes of downtime, Leo. I mean,
I know. I'm never going to listen.
Million things you could possibly do.
I'm just thinking, for leisure time, there is one of the things that's a wonderful thing to do is to sit back with a perfect stereo image and great sound and just listen to some beautiful, something wonderful.
Oh, you understand, though, for this to work, you would have to listen to old music.
Hans Zimmer.
Or Hans Zimmer, okay. Fair enough. Because this stuff,
Oh, no, they now mix it for the little speaker. No, I agree. They mix it for earbuds.
Not just that, but, the entire style, the way the music is made, not just technically, but for consumption has changed, right? I mean, people don't listen to albums, don't think of music in terms of albums, don't consider, 8 to 13 songs to represent some entity that needs to be listened to in a certain order. We have minuscule attention spans. God,
we're sounding like old farts.
No, but it's true. I mean, albums are not what they used to be.
It's true.
This is it's a playlist nation.
No. Playlist nation. That's it. Sigh.
So I just got some late breaking news from Microsoft.
I saw this. I don't know if you want to talk about it. It might fit at the end of the show. Do you see what you're fit with your? If it's the same one I'm seeing.
The 64-bit thing?
Oh no, what's that?
What did you say?
Are you talking about the 64-bit update? I was talking about a new web tool.
Oh, that no. Oh, we should say that. No, Microsoft. Well, I get access to this NPD data over time that shows, which versions of Windows are selling the best and how 64-bit versions are doing and so forth. And you may recall some months ago we talked about this a little bit. And one of the big trends with Windows 7 is that 64-bit versions of Windows are selling a lot better than they used to, which makes plenty of sense. Microsoft just released some data on this, and I have to say the 64-bit penetration on Windows 7 is not as high as what I'd seen. But to compare it to, say, Windows XP, where less than 1% of all of Windows XP is 64-bit, because that 64-bit version was terrible. On Windows Vista, about 11% of the install base was 64-bit, compared to 89% for 32-bit. And what they're saying now for Windows 7 so far is that it's almost 50%. So about 64% of the install base is 64-bit and 54% is 32-bit. But again, that's interesting to me because I had seen numbers that were much higher for 64-bit.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you walked into Best Buy,
it's not what I would have thought.
Yeah. I mean, you see a lot of 64-bit. I mean, you see it on PCs.
It seems like all the new computers they're putting 64-bit on them.
I'm curious about that.
That can't be right. It's just wrong,
I wonder
Paul.
if it's because of... well, I wonder if there's some sort of in-place upgrade from Vista skewing this.
There you go. That's what it is. Well, in a way, I'm happy about it because I don't see well, you correct me. You're the Windows expert. I don't see a compelling reason to go 64-bit, and I see some significant compatibility issues still.
I don't see significant compatibility issues. I see occasional.
Even occasional isn't justified by. I mean, is there such an improvement? Do you need 8 gigs of RAM?
I mean, I'm speaking sort of generally. In my own experience, I see zero compatibility issues.
Right.
I've never seen.
Me neither. But you forget that we have I have on the radio show lots of listeners.
Yeah, no, I don't forget.
Parallel port printers.
Yeah. So I guess so.
Is 64-bit more stable?
Sure. No, I don't think that's no.
Is 64-bit faster?
No.
So the only, as far as I can tell, the advantage is you can go over 4 gigs of RAM.
Right.
That's it.
Well, that's it. Except that's actually a pretty big deal. I would also point out that if you had massive amounts of RAM, you also get a 32-bit address space for every 32-bit application. In 32-bit versions of Windows, you have one 32-bit address space for all.
So it would be more robust.
It could be. So if you were going to just run a couple of very high-end 32-bit applications, Photoshop, maybe a video editor, and so forth, and you had 8 gigs or 16 gigs or whatever it was, up to 192 gigs of RAM, theoretically, yeah, you could actually much better take advantage of, that's a horribly contorted sentence, but would be able to take advantage of much more RAM and actually maybe notice the difference. So, yeah, I realize it's like you only have this one little advantage. Well, yeah, but it's actually a pretty significant advantage, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah. And actually, somebody in the chat room just said something that might explain the NPD numbers. Yep. Netbooks are still 32-bit. So maybe the vast number of netbook sales is what's skewing this number.
But netbooks are still a minority portion of what's sold for PCs. Yes, fair enough. I think that
they're not more. They're not selling more netbooks than they are.
No.
Oh, I didn't. I thought it was the biggest category out there.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I think that, and again, this is off the top of my head. I think the Vista upgrades. I think a lot of people wanted to get right off of Vista. Plus netbooks maybe is what explains it, because when you look at new PC sales, I'd have to go back and see. I'd have to go back and find the most recent one I saw. It was overwhelmingly. We talked about this in a podcast months ago. I mean, overwhelmingly 64-bit. It was really high. I'm going to have to go back and check.
Yeah, I mean, every new computer I see is 64-bit.
Yep.
I mean, we're talking about the OS. Obviously, all the hardware is 64-bit hardware. We're talking about the fact that they install Windows 64 on it.
Yep.
Windows 7 64. So I see in your.
Yes, Leo, I walked into an Apple store this week and I bought a new iPhone.
You bought a new iPhone. So you broke down the Retina display, the FaceTime, the gigahertz processor, the extended battery life, the 512 megs of RAM. That convinced you to buy this fine iPhone 4. Am I right, sir?
You were wrong. I bought a 3GS.
What?
Because
he said in feigned horror.
You what?
You what?
No, I couldn't have bought an iPhone 4 if I wanted to. Of course, they're not available. No, I mean, I'm in kind of a tricky situation. I'm actually guessing here because I don't remember exactly when it happened. But sometime last fall, October, November, I had the 3G at the time, and I was waiting to get the 3GS because my contract was going to expire. And I dropped the phone into the sink, into the water, and I quickly scooped it out.
Did it enjoy that?
No. And actually, since then, and roughly since then, again, I don't remember exactly, but, it's not been working correctly. It's very, very slow, and I've demonstrated this to people. Everyone who sees this is shocked by how badly it performs. It didn't matter because in January I got the 3GS, so I just sort of, who cares? And we used it as a remote in the kitchen, for AirTunes or whatever they call it. So, but my 3GS got stolen, as you know,
back by a gypsy woman,
Iranian gypsy, and in the end of May. So, I had a 3G. I mean, I could just swap it out, and I did, and AT&T did that. It was no problem. But I've been using this thing, and it is. You want to scream at it. It's so slow. You scroll your finger to unlock it, and the unlock animation, it goes 1, 2, and then it goes.
Oh, that's not right.
Very, very slow. And it's not the OS. I actually followed some complicated instructions to go back to an earlier version. I've done all the reset stuff, all that stuff. But on that trip cross country with my dad, when I was taking pictures and trying to, post photos on Facebook and stuff, it was so frustrating. And my father actually kind of made fun of me at one time because I was kind of screaming at the phone. And I said, here, you use it. And he was like, how do you use this thing?
It's so slow.
It's completely unusable. So I went first to AT&T and then eventually to the Apple store last weekend. And I said, look, I got to do something. I
Well, did they not acknowledge that it was broken? That there was something wrong with it?
It is broke. Oh yeah, no. Everyone who looked at it was like, "Oh,
this is bad." Okay.
You know, we've never seen one like this. This is crazy.
And it would be less than a year old, but I guess there's no warranty for dropping it in the sink.
Well, it's a 3G, so actually,
it's a 3G.
It's
gone.
Over. I mean, right now it's 2 years old.
2 years old. Yeah.
It's way out of warranty.
Yeah,
so, I could have bought an Android phone or some phone at AT&T. I didn't want to do that. I went to the Apple store, and they were actually. I was in line to get it looked at, but then I was looking at what they offer, and I could get a 3GS.
Cheap.
Unfortunately, only with 8 gigs of RAM, which is unfortunate.
But, that's fine.
But for $300, you know, so I could have had a refurbished version of the phone that I already had, a 3G, for $200, or a brand new 3GS with the same amount of RAM for $300. And it seemed like a no-brainer. I for the brief, 4 or 5 months I had the 3GS, I thought it was fine. It worked very well and all that stuff. So I'm moving on to Windows Phone anyway, right? So the thing is, I'm going to Europe, you know. I need to make sure I have something with me this next month that works. And using that 3G would have been awful. It would have just been so painful. So
good. I think on behalf of Steve Jobs and the entire Apple family, I'd like to thank you for buying another iPhone.
And let me point something out, because we do talk about Apple all the time, and I think it's important to spend at least 15 minutes on this.
Yeah, just to drive our audience insane.
No, actually, I have a complaint.
Okay.
I looked at this Retina display, and granted, I didn't look through it through a bunch of photos, but just looking at the UI and clicking through programs, it seemed crisp and clear, but it didn't seem dramatically better to me. I mean, am I missing something?
No, you're about right. I mean, it's very crisp. It's a phone. Do you really need like the most beautiful crisp display?
No.
ever?
I'm not asking you to apologize for them. I'm just curious.
By the way.
No. I mean, I'm just curious.
I bought one. I like it.
Oh no, it's beautiful.
And I'm sad you didn't buy one, because I would have loved to have somebody to FaceTime with.
Leo, I don't really swing.
Hi,
that
Paul.
way,
What you doing? Yeah, just
Leo
hanging
calls,
out. I'm
he
at the
wants
mall
another-
right now.
He wants another facial. Could you please pick up the phone?
Hi.
Yeah, no thanks. But
I went on Mac Break Weekly this week and said this FaceTime thing is a gimmick. In a year, everybody will go, what the hell? Nobody ever will use it. And they laughed at me. They said, wrong, you're wrong, you're so wrong. And I don't get it. I'm sorry, I don't get it.
But Mac Break Weekly. I mean, this is the ultimate version of living in the bubble. I mean, to the Apple guys, they've done it
Apple
again.
does,
Here comes the confetti, I mean, it
isn't. And the Retina display is beautiful.
Okay.
It is. I think it's better. It's appreciably better. But first of all, I think one of the problems is you got to have software that uses it, because a lot of older software, you're not going to see the Retina display. In fact, it looks a little blurry because you're seeing more detail on it. It's scaling it.
Well, the thing I remember is
text looks better. Look at the Kindle app, stuff like that. It's very legible.
Okay. So I just remember the video coming out of the announcement, and you watch it, and they have the two screens, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, look at the 3GF and less.
No, it's not like that. It doesn't jump out at you.
On the left. Can you believe how different it is? And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, they're exactly the same. What are you talking about?
Yeah. You're looking at it on the TV. Come on.
I understand.
But no, I'm kind of with you. I am still undecided about whether, I'm using an iPhone 4. I bought one. Got to do it. But I'm still undecided. I really miss believe it or not, my Android phone a lot.
You know what's gonna do it though? The Droid X or whatever.
I think I'm going Droid X. It's pretty nice.
Nice.
Will the Windows phone you get be CDMA? You don't know. You can't say. We won't say anything. But it wouldn't be any good for international. And that's something I bring up when people say, oh, I'm waiting for Verizon iPhone. If you travel out of the U.S., it's unusable.
Well, now, they could do that dual antenna thing.
Yeah, they could, but they won't.
Verizon does sell a bunch of phones like that, so we'll see.
I'm tempted. I want to look at the Galaxy S, which I hear is very good, and I'm really intrigued by the Droid X. And you know what?
Droid X is really interesting. I'd love to see my wife upgrade to this phone. She has zero.
She uses an Android, Droid, right?
Yeah.
The thing that might sell her and is kind of selling me is, I've heard one report, nobody has these yet. Can touch it next week, but that the battery life is like 2 days.
Really?
If that's true, done.
My high hope for the iPhone 4, and of course I never got one. I would love to have a phone that had such a good camera, you could actually use it as a camera and not feel bad about it. And of course, it would geotag your photos and all this stuff, which I think is really important these days. And you could just have that one thing, you know? And I would like that for my wife as well, because she carries a camera around in her bag with her phone. Yeah. And how neat would it be just to have the one thing?
Now, here's an interesting question, because your son is deaf, yes?
Yeah.
Does he sign?
No.
Okay, so if he signed, do you think FaceTime would then, I mean, that would be one use case I would think that might be kind of good.
Yeah, I don't want to get off. Yeah, so I will say, during that announcement, I mean, as a parent of a deaf child, when they showed, I don't know if it was a commercial or whatever,
it was the commercial, yeah.
Where they show the people
pretty
signing
moving.
to each other.
Pretty moving.
It's tear-inducing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice. And
of course, you have to have somewhere to put the phone, because you can't sign and hold you'd have to one-hand. Can you sign one-handed? I don't know if you can.
I don't know, but I guess you could put it in a dock or something,
right?
You know.
But that would be cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice way to sell something. I'm sure. No, I mean, good for them. And Apple, for whatever it's worth, as far as the deaf community stuff goes, Apple still is the only major supplier of digital media content that does do some captioning.
Absolutely.
I mean,
and they're very
Hulu's starting to as well. I mean, but they've been on the forefront of that.
Yep.
And they support soft captioning. I mean, it's still slower than I'd like to see, but compared to Microsoft or Amazon or anyone else, I mean, it's not even close. So.
And let's face it, probably most deaf people are texting, not making FaceTime calls, because that's kind of universal.
But I mean, it's very personal. I mean, to be able to do something like that would be incredible,
wouldn't it?
So,
yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I was just curious about that one aspect of it.
Yeah. No, my son doesn't sign. So.
Windows 7 feature of the week in a bit, our tip of the week, and our Audible picks and software picks, all coming up still. But before we go there, I want to go here. Drobo, D-R-O-B-O. Drobo, the Drobo Elite, the Drobo S. Do you Drobo?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. Do you Drobo?
I don't. You know, I have a Drobo here for review.
Oh. I'd love to hear what you think about it.
Yeah.
And be honest, even though they spend millions of dollars every day with TWiT.
Okay. I don't really concern myself with the advertising aspect of anything.
Absolutely, as you never should.
But having met with the company, I mean, I can tell you the one thing that I told them, which is, you know, I mentioned that Microsoft has the Xbox 360. Apple has everything that they make. But, you know, certain products seem to get people to evangelize for them.
Yep.
And Drobo is that product.
Absolutely.
I mean, and it is the rare example of a product that works in businesses of all sizes, as well as for, you know, creative professionals and so forth, where people who use this thing feel the need to evangelize it to others. And it's very rare.
Yeah. There's something magic about it. I think partly it's how it looks. It's it's a USB drive enclosure. I mean, how excited can you get about such a thing? And yet,
well, but it's more than that.
It's
actually,
more than
because
that.
Anyone who's had to configure RAID or do anything like that understands why this is a big deal.
It goes beyond RAID, allows you to mix.
I don't know how I inserted myself into this ad, but actually, I mean,
I think you're making good points. Yeah. If you go to drobo.com/windows, besides seeing Paul's beautiful anime face.
It's in a rather large version of it, by the way.
It is bigger than normal. Makes you look even handsomer than usual. You will see more information about the Drobo. There are a number of Drobo models, starting with the original 4-bay Drobo. 4 drives, mix and match, but they all add up to redundant backup. You can lose any one drive, and it rebuilds itself when you replace it. You can expand it just by adding one drive at a time. It rebuilds itself automatically. Very fast USB. But then if you go to the Drobo S, you get 5 bays. The Drobo Pro, 8 disk bays. The Drobo Elite, also 8 bays. That means there are now 3 terabyte drives coming soon. That means you could have 24 terabytes of storage. You take about a quarter of that for redundancy. It's still 18 terabytes of storage in one unit. And because it supports iSCSI, it's really a SAN. And you got dual gigabit Ethernet ports using iSCSI. You can have multiple people using it. Great for small businesses, video editing teams, things like that. It's VMware certified, so it's also great for virtualization. The Drobo FS, which is a network-attached storage solution from Drobo. Look at the capacity calculator at drobo.com/windows, and you can exactly figure out what, you can use the drives you've got and just stick them in there if they're SATA drives. You can also get And also, when you get to the website, you'll see there's a discussion of their Beyond RAID, why that's better than even RAID 6 in terms of functionality. drobo.com/Windows. Best reason to go there? $75 to $500 off when you purchase the Drobo model plus hard drives. That's right for you. Just use the word Windows in the Drobo store, but it's all explained at drobo.com/Windows Weekly. Find out why people are in love with their Drobos. You'll fall in love too with Drobo.
Put all of your stuff on a Drobo.
It's good.
It's good. It's good, isn't it? You got to say that. Our Windows 7 feature of the week. Paul explores features that you may have heard about, perhaps haven't thought about now that you're using Windows 7.
I'm running out of features, obviously, because this week I'm talking about Internet Explorer 8.
That's a feature.
It is a feature. Yeah, I try to hit the high points, you know.
Yeah.
I've actually been using IE8 a lot lately, which you can see for yourself, you know, because, again, I track all my software usage over at Wakupa. And the reason I've been using it, for the most part, is that I've been using a lot of Microsoft's new Windows Live services, you know, like the new Hotmail and so forth. And actually, those services work fine across multiple browsers, but it caused me to sort of re-examine IE8. And it's interesting to me. I've always intended to have a feature on my site where you review something, and then you, and by you, I mean I review something, and then I go back and revisit it at some point in the future, because sometimes things seem great in the beginning or seem horrible in the beginning, but then time goes by and you reevaluate things. And I've always thought of this as 28 Days Later, like that horror movie, because in many cases, sometimes, you know, these problems take a little while to crop up, and it's like a zombie attack or something, you know. But you know, IE8 is interesting to me because it has a bad reputation, and yet it's actually a decent product. It's just an odd thing, you know. The high-profile features, if you were to go back and look at reviews of IE8 when it first came out, before Windows 7 shipped last year, you know, you would learn about things like accelerators and web slices and stuff like that. And I honestly don't believe that anyone uses any of that stuff. I think if you were to look at IE8 usage today, that stuff really doesn't get used a lot. Microsoft maybe one day will back me up on that, because I know they have, you know, they record these metrics to see, you know, they can see what people are clicking on and how people use things and so forth, and they can determine, you know, whether the new features are valuable or whether they're ignored or whether people don't even know they're there and so forth. IE8 is odd because out of the box, you know, when it's brand new, it's actually pretty speedy. And even though you see these, you know, performance tests, whether it's JavaScript or whatever it is, and, you know, IE8 is always the one that gets the laughs because it's so far behind and all that kind of stuff. The reality is, in real world usage, you know, we're talking about a difference that is less than the time it takes to blink your eye. You know, that even though it looks funny on a graph, it's not like it's sitting there rendering, you know, something and it's minutes later. I mean, the truth is, the real world performance of these browsers is not that different between the different browsers.
The benchmarks are always a little. This is true of computers too. You know, you can't see some of these differences at all. It's just it's. Well,
you know, Apple used to do those like Photoshop rendering things. It's like, oh, look at the Pentium 3. You know, it's still rendering, and you could see it. You know, because it was a visual thing. But you know, you load a web page and it comes up.
Right.
And then you look at the benchmark, and IE8 was 800 times slower, or whatever the figure is, and they both just came up. And how are you measuring this? I mean, that's part of it. There are some very real world performance issues with IE8, but they're all related to, in my experience, to add-ons. And IE8 is like a magnet for add-ons. I think if you just browse the web, you get add-ons added to the browser somehow. It's really kind of a weird problem. And every time I've looked at IE8, because it's been, you know, the browser comes up, maybe you do a new tab or just a new window, and that page doesn't load immediately. I always go and look, and there's this crazy list of add-ons. You know, Office adds add-ons, there are toolbars, and all these other things. And what I found is that if you just disable most of that stuff, you know, you get the performance back. So I think there's some stuff there that is a little overblown, and then I think there's stuff like the add-ons, which is actually a serious problem in my opinion.
So do you use IE8?
So I have been using IE8. And this, I have gone back and forth. I mean, there have been periods of time. I was a big Firefox guy for a long time, a big Chrome guy for a long, long time. I've been using IE8 a lot recently. I've been using Safari recently, and Safari is a browser that
on Windows?
I've blown off. Yeah, because as it's gotten a little bit more compatible with stuff, you have to play with it a bit. But I do actually kind of like the way that it renders text. But you have to, like I said, you have to, not the way it renders text out of the box, but it does render text differently. And part of it was out of just testing purposes. One of the things that Microsoft added in the new versions of the Windows Live suite services was, Safari compatibility. So it was one of those things I just started playing with it just to test it. And then in looking at it, it's like, well, actually this looks pretty good. There's some interesting stuff there. So I can't really say, you could go and look at Koopa, you could just see it for yourself. I mean, lately IE has been right at the top. It's been the one I've been using the most. I mean, the past couple of days, for whatever reason, it's been Chrome. I mean, it's just, it kind of goes up and down. But I honestly believe that the strongest reason to use IE8 right now, aside from the fact that it just comes with Windows 7 and lots of people just kind of do that, is it really does have some excellent security features, and it does an excellent job of blocking malware type attacks. It doesn't do a good job of blocking like add-on installs for some reason, at least what I can tell. I mean, even I have things added on that I'm not even sure how they got in there.
BHO type browser helper object type.
Yeah. And it's not clear how you get rid of that stuff, right? Because you can disable it, but it's not, there's not a very clear, and I think there should be a clear get rid of this forever kind of thing. I don't want it on my computer,
right.
But they have all the stuff, reliability features like tab isolation, and they have the in private browsing mode, which is that way to browse without leaving any tracks and so forth. There's some neat stuff, and I think the big deal with IE8, and this is, again, it's a sad thing to have to say, but I think one of the big things is you don't have to worry about people, if it's your parents or in my case my kids or whatever it is, if they get Windows 7 and they use this browser, it's okay. It's not like a big security thing. Whereas with IE6, it was always impending disaster, waiting to happen. So I'm not suggesting that people go back and give it another chance or anything. I don't mean it like that. I think that people make very specific choices when it comes to browsers, and I think that the people who listen to this podcast, are going to choose what they want to choose. That's not really the point, but it is included with Windows 7, and it's not as horrible as people say it is. And a lot of the things that people complain about, like the performance or standard support, I guess they're real issues, but in the real world, I mean, I don't run into HTML5 sites that don't render properly in IE8 on the web right now, so it's not currently a huge deal.
IE8. It's not as bad as you think it is.
It doesn't suck as bad as you heard.
You really are scraping the bottom of the barrel now.
Slightly better than... What was that Japanese browser that was on the
yeah.
Sleepnear.
Sleepnear.
It's a huge upgrade over Sleepnear.
It is. I'll grant you that.
Yeah.
And our Windows 7 tip of the week.
I can't remember if we ever discussed this, but this is another one of those things, reader emails. And it came up 3 or 4 times this week in different emails. One guy was, has an OEM version of Windows, meaning the version from the PC maker, but doesn't want to install it because it has all that crap around there.
Right.
How do I get around that? Can I do it this way? Can I do it this way? One of the little bits of advice, and this is kind of an interesting workaround, I think, and I'll formalize this into an article. I've never really written this up, but I think this is decent advice, is if most people, of course, get Windows with a new PC, right? And over time, real or perceived, there's some performance meltdown or whatever it is, and they've installed stuff and it's not working the way they want it to. And you can use all those tools we've recommended, like Saluto and so forth, to sort through all that stuff. But for what, a lot of people like to just start over from scratch. The PC that I'm using today has had Windows 8 on it since almost this time last year. It was late it would be the final version, so probably from October last year, I guess. It might be the longest I've ever gone without reinstalling an operating system on any given PC in quite a while, just because of the nature of what I do. But I've been doing it on purpose. I really want to see how long I can go with this thing. So far, so good. It works fine. But people like to start over from scratch. Now, if you got Windows 7 with a new PC, however, you know how that works, right? You install it, and 9 times out of 10, what you get is all that junkware that they threw in there. You know, the weird webcam apps, the little, you know, the games that are sort of like web games, and there's 13 different uninstallers for all of them and all that kind of junk. And what people really want to do is just install Windows and not have any of that crapware on there, and it's understandable. There are ways to remove crapware. We've talked about that stuff, like PC decrapifier and so forth. But you know, they want to do it again and again. You know, in other words, the idea is if I want to reinstall my computer from scratch, I want to get it back to a pristine state and not have to do this deinstall of crapware every single time I do it. So here's one way that you could do it. Windows 7 includes a version of Windows Backup that includes an image-based, restore, backup and restore system. So the first time that you reinstall your computer from scratch, if you don't have a choice, and if you know the installer that your PC maker gave you requires you just to put all that crapware back on there. If that is the case, I mean, there's nothing else you can do, right? So you just do it. Uninstall all the stuff, one time. Go through the time it takes to actually get all of that stuff off of your computer, right? Then do a backup, a complete system backup. And then use that backup the next time you have to reinstall your computer from scratch, right? Don't do the PC Maker reinstall. Use your reinstall. You can boot with the Windows 7 setup disk. You can do the restore tools. Get your computer back that way. You could conceivably, if you wanted to, install all your apps as well, although there are some issues around that because obviously they'll need to be updated over time. But if you want to throw Office and Essentials and whatever else it is that you put on your PC every time you do it, go ahead and do it. And that way, the next time, if you're one of those people that has to reinstall a lot, you don't use the PC tools, use the tools that come in Windows, and then you'll have that sort of pristine, non-crapware, bundled version of Windows. So it's a kind of a way to get around it.
Is the backup bootable?
Yeah, well, your PC is bootable off of the Windows 7 setup disk. And then the options, at one point, it's like a flowchart. You want to install Windows, or you want to do recovery. Go into recovery, PC restore. It looks, you plug in the hard drive with the image on it, churns and bubbles for a little while, and you're right back up where you were.
Yeah, I do images all the time. I like doing that. I think that's a great way to do it. And you're right. If you're relying on your system recovery disk,
it's worth trying. It's worth trying because you never know. Some PCs ship with 2 disks, right? The first one is the OS with all the drivers, and the second one is all the junk. Well, if you can live without their, application to write stuff on top of a DVD or whatever, all the junk they put in there, skip that. And then you don't have to worry about this tip. But a lot of them are automated, right? You don't really have a choice. And if you have that type of thing where you don't have a choice, this is a way to get around it the next time.
We're going to get our software tip of the week. 2 software picks, actually. Actually 3 if we add the one I was just thinking about. But before we do that, we've got a lot of Audible picks for you. Let me talk a little bit about Audible.com. Audible is that great place to go to get audiobooks. Paul and I are major Audible fanatics. I listen in my car. I listen at the gym. I listen on a plane. Anytime I've got some downtime, that's what I do. I listen to Audible.com. On your iPhone, your iPad, your Zune, your Kindle, even, the Sansa and a lot of MP3 players, even...
the Rio Carbon.
The Rio Carbon. And some GPS devices.
I should check. I bet it's...
I wouldn't be surprised. There are, I think it's over 500 devices that Audible plays on. And when you've got an Audible book to listen to, I say, go ahead. Throw boredom at me. Go ahead. Waste my time because I've got Audible here in my ears, and I don't care. In fact, the more time I get to listen, the better. The happier I am. I just finished The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and I loved it. Can't wait to read the other 2. I'm reading The Wind-Up Girl by Paolo Bacigalupi right now. It's amazing. What it is that Audible gets great readers, so they bring these books to life. They're very visual. You feel like, really, you're watching a movie. In fact, I don't know if you've noticed this, Paul, but for some reason, there's this memory thing that goes on. When I listen to a book or I rewind and go back and listen to a passage, I can remember where I was when I heard that passage. It's some weird thing that happens in the brain that doesn't happen with regular books. They imprint. Some people might say that's not a good thing, but I like it.
It actually destroys childhood memories. It's a feature.
It's pushing them right out. So all those unhappy memories, this is what Audible's going to know. Audible is a great way to experience. I guess what I'm saying is you're experiencing the book in a way you don't when you're reading it and turning the pages. It really comes to life, partly because of the good readers. So here's the deal. We give you a free book So you could try it. You don't have to take our word for it. Just go to audible.com/windows. Audible.com/windows, and you can choose from 75,000 titles and more all the time in every category of literature, fiction, nonfiction, sci-fiction, all sorts of stuff. You want to talk about comedy? That's true. There's nothing like the belly laugh you get when you're listening to a great, funny book on Audible.com.
We were just talking about music and how, in my own lifestyle, depending on where I am, I listen to things in different places. And one of the tough things for audiobooks for me personally is that because I don't commute, I don't often have these huge swaths of time.
Yes, me neither.
Where I can listen to something, all at once. And you really do, when you're listening to an actual book, like a book, a novel or whatever, you want to have some time. You want to be able to listen to chunks of it and have it make sense and so forth. I made the mistake on my drive with my dad of not listening to a comedy thing, which I think would have been more appropriate. Because my thought at the time was, well, hey, now we're in the car for like hours at a time, so why not? But I think the nice thing about the comedy books, which are literally almost always actual books written by comics that are then read by the comics, so they're somewhere between a book and a stand-up routine, is that they can be enjoyed in very small chunks.
Oh, good point, yeah.
You don't have to remember the narrative. It doesn't matter because they're basically just little skits, We've recommended a few this year. I had recommended The Areas of My Expertise by John Hodgman, which is fantastic, and I Drink for a Reason by David Cross, which is one of my all-time favorites, actually. But I was looking through, there's a new woman on The Daily Show, Olivia Munn, who has a new book out called
She's
something
from
like
G4. Is she really on The Daily Show now?
Yeah. Huh. I don't think I am not going to get that book. And that's what led me to this, which was I saw on the show that she had a book, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. Maybe she'll be funny, and this will be a good book. And the part I listened to, it just didn't do it for me. There's something about her that I just didn't. It didn't kick in there. And then Samantha Bee is another woman who's on The Daily Show that I like
her. I think she's funny.
Yeah, so she has a book that actually sounded pretty good, but I can't bring myself to buy it. So I'm those are sort of possibilities. But what I did was I kind of went back and I looked at the ones that I do have.
Some great ones there.
There's some good ones, and some of them are older, like Dennis Miller, I Rant, Therefore I Am, which is excellent, and anything by Bill Maher. I love Bill Maher. New Rules is classic, and a segment on the show he does. Maybe I'm not saying it's the best of all time, but it's absolutely in the top 5. And this came out, I think, before I have to think about this one, 2004 election, perhaps. America, the audiobook, A Citizen's Guide to Democracy in Action by Jon Stewart and all the other guys at the time who were on The Daily Show. It might even date back before that. It's an older book, but my wife and I listened to that on a road trip up to Vermont years ago, and I was crying. I was laughing so hard. It's fantastic. And there's just a bunch of them, and I guess what I'm suggesting this week, rather than a particular book necessarily, is just the notion that if you're like me and you don't have a lot of time at any given time to dedicate to this kind of thing, comedy books are excellent choices.
I agree.
Because, again, you don't have to worry about the narrative,
I agree.
And some of this stuff, the David Cross book is beautiful. He just does a segment on like T-shirt ideas that I came up with that will never sell, like "Kick Me, I'm Pregnant," and things like that just don't make any sense at all. It is. Some of these things are just fantastically funny. To me. So everyone has a different taste in comedy, obviously.
Well, there's plenty to choose from. Even Olivia Munn.
Even possibly Olivia Munn. Well, there's that one. You've seen the site probably, the Shit My Dad Says.
Oh my God, that is so funny.
That's a site where I went to the site and read some of the stuff and was literally almost crying.
Oh yeah.
And there's an audiobook version of it. I kind of listened to it and I thought, well, okay, this is a little over the top. I'm not sure if this should be the recommendation. Again, depending on your sense of humor and how you feel.
You can always, first of all, you're going to get this book for free. But the other thing you can do is you can listen to previews on the site. That's what you did with Olivia's book. By the way, they prominently featuring her cleavage on the cover. So I think we know where we're going with this book.
Yeah, and I think that's part of my knee-jerk reaction to the way they market her.
Yeah.
I just am not interested. Not because I'm not interested in beautiful women, but I feel like, if she's funny, why do we...
an audiobook and a beautiful woman, they don't go together. Because it's audio.
It doesn't matter how beautiful she is, right? You're listening to her voice. I stayed with my mom
for a year before going back home because he refused to go to school or say please or thank you or be normal.
I mean, you just want
This same ad?
You just want to hit her?
turn it off. No. I mean, you
No.
want,
There's
you
so
want
many
her-
good choices. You can make that one of them. It doesn't matter. You get the first one free, but you've got some great recommendations here, including David Cross's book, which you've recommended before, right?
Yep, love it. I just love it.
What is it?
Something
I drink
about him that just strikes.
I drink for a reason.
This strikes me as being absolutely right. It's just funny to me. And
think-
again, like I said, everyone has a different sense of humor.
Exactly. But there's plenty there, and there is nothing like laughing out loud while you're in the gym and people look at you.
People look at you like you're crazy.
Like you're crazy because you're
Well,
just laughing.
my best all-time Audible experience probably was on the Paris subway when I was listening to one of the Hitchhiker books read by Stephen Fry. And I literally just started, laughing. You just don't, people looking at me like I'm an insane person. I thought someone was going to call the Metro Police or something.
But you
It's a
can't
French
not
word.
laugh at Stephen Fry. Come on.
He's great.
Audible.com/Windows. There are great books there. Wonderful. We'll put links. I've already put on the Buzz show feed, and I'll put them in the show notes. If somebody put them in the wiki, that'd be great. Of the 5 or 6 recommendations that we just got from Paul. Some really funny books. I've read most of those. I haven't read the David Miller or the Bill Maher, so I'm going to get both of those. I do like laughing. Audible.
Bill Maher's got a number of them, by the way. Just that.
/Windows, and he reads them, of course. Now, our software pick of the week, Paulie.
Yeah, so last week I perhaps foolishly selected, the Minefield version of Mozilla Firefox 4, but of course, just days later they released the actual Beta 1. I didn't realize it was happening that quickly. So Firefox 4 Beta 1 is now available, and that would probably be the better one to get because one of the nice things they're going to be doing with this beta version is updating it automatically for you over time, and you can join into the beta program and you can fill out surveys and other things. And it's, if you're interested in Firefox and seeing how it improves over time, this is a great way to do it. And one of the things I found out that, again, I just hadn't realized was that on the Windows version, of course, they have this new UI, and they're going to be adding that to the Mac and Linux versions over time. But they're also holding off on some what are apparently major new features that will hit all different versions. So, I guess there'll be some surprises down the road as well. So it looks, it's interesting. Firefox has been on kind of not a slide, I would say a holding pattern, it seems for a while now. And this one, it seems good and possibly something that they could, turn things around. So
Good.
Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, I'm rooting for Firefox, always.
Yeah. Sure.
And there's a new Microsoft Web Platform. Is that the same thing as the web developer that I was talking about?
No, the web developer is part of it. So this is a way that Microsoft bundles all of the free web development tools that they offer into a single package. And this is the new version of that. So it includes like the latest version of their web server, the SQL, 3 version of SQL Server, the .NET Framework for ASP.NET development, and Visual Web Developer, which is the free version of Visual Studio that is tailored toward.
So what's this web matrix thing? Is that the same, or is this?
Yeah, so
this is just
confusing.
out in beta. That's not the same thing?
Yeah. Not exactly. Web Matrix has some actually newer tools in it. So there is a new type of IIS, which I haven't looked at. The issue for me is that I actually do develop my website locally still, so I use IIS, which is Microsoft's web server. I looked at the installer and I started it off, and then I said, I don't want to throw this on a system that has
A production
IIS, but
server on it, yeah.
Well, I don't know how they'll interact, or
Right.
if they would interact.
But this is also an
ASP.
ASP tool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the deal with that one is that it has a bunch of, starter kits around, new types of websites and how-tos and all that.
Oh, and this comes with it comes with IIS Developer.
Yeah, but
so it's built in.
It's actually a new.
It's an interesting way to do
thing.
it.
It's like a new version of IIS, like an IIS Lite or something. I gotta go look at it again. Let me see.
It looks pretty cool, and it's focused on workspaces and all of that stuff. Anyway, 2 things you can go: Microsoft.com/web/jumpstart, and then Microsoft.com/web/webmatrix. They're kind of all related.
I think the web matrix stuff is based around plug-in solutions for ASP.NET. Things that are
right,
kind of packaged for you, so you can kind of build your own solutions on top of them and so forth.
So go to Microsoft.com/web really, because there's a ton of stuff there.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. And this Web Matrix beta just started.
One of a million areas where Microsoft's been plugging away for a long time.
Right, and nobody knows.
People seem not to realize it.
Yeah. Very interesting. I'm going to play with this Web Matrix just because it's the servers built in and everything, so you don't even need to put it on a server to kind of play with stuff.
Right.
I kind of like that. Paul, we've come to the end of what could only be considered a stellar edition of Windows Weekly, the 64-bit version of Windows.
64-bit version, yeah.
More memory.
Yeah, I think just going to 64-bit, it's like you get extra encryption or something. It's
it is episode 164. So there
it is.
We'll see you next week. If you want to watch us do this live, it really is a different kind of experience. Normally we start on time. Today I started 45 minutes late. I apologize to all and sundry. We do normally do this at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC at live.twit.tv. But, of course, if I'm late, you can get the show later because we make it available in audio and video on a variety of platforms, including the Zune Marketplace and iTunes, and even on YouTube at youtube.com/twit. Or just go to twit.tv/WW, and you can download it there or subscribe there to any of the platforms you like. Paul is the editor-in-chief of the SuperSite for Windows. Really a great place to go if you want to know more about Windows. WinSuperSite.com. He's a news editor for Windows IT Pro and the author of Windows 7 Secrets, soon Windows Phone Secrets. 3 chapters down, 18 to go, Paul.
It's not that bad. But
okay. How many chapters?
16.
Okay.
And then there's, this other
appendices, indices,
matter, as we call it.
Forwards, afterwards, acknowledgments.
Yeah. Sure.
All that stuff can be written, day before on a plane.
In my sleep.
In your sleep. Paul Thurrott, always fun. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next week.
Sure.
On Windows Weekly.